Today I'm ranking the 10 best decks in the Pokemon TCG in May 2025. This will be an opinion-based ranking. I could just go to Limitless and take the statistical ranking for you guys, but I'll show you that now since I won't be using the statistical ranking. You can look at these stats either with the decks split into their variants or not, but today I will be giving my own opinion and ranking the top 10, showing you guys lists, talking about the decks. So let's hop right into my number 10, which is going to be Frostlass, Munkidori, Budew, and we're looking at the 6th place list from the Sevilla special event piloted by Arthur Vincent. There's a few key pieces to how this deck works and why it is competitively viable. So Frostlass has the ability Freezing Shroud during Pokemon Checkup, which also means between turns, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability, both yours and your opponent's except any Frostlass. And then you'll be using your Munkidori's Adrenabrain to move damage from your own Pokemon onto your opponent's Pokemon. Note that the Munkidori's will be getting damaged between turns with Frostlass, so you don't need your opponent to be hitting you or spreading damage. You're doing that yourself and then moving it with Adrenabrain. And then you're slowing your opponent down with Itchy Pollen from Budew to item lock them and slow down their game so that your little bits of incremental damage actually can add up eventually to take knockouts and win. So you're going to be doing things like Counter Catcher plus item lock. You also have Gravity Gemstone in here, which makes both active Pokemon's retreat costs plus 1 more. So you could do something like Counter Catcher up a Pokemon with 1 retreat cost, put Gravity Gemstone on your Budew, and then Itchy Pollen. So then that Pokemon has plus 1 retreat and they're item locked. Note that if Latios is in play, their basic Pokemon will still have free retreat, even with Gravity Gemstone. And then you also have the option of using Corner for Maractus to just retreat lock them as well. So this is definitely an annoying deck, but it's also pretty cool with the damage spread from Freezing Shroud and the damage placement from Adrenabrain. So it's a unique deck, but definitely can be annoying to play against, especially if you have a lot of abilities in your deck. So playing against this deck, you want to not bench. You don't want to overbench things with abilities. You don't want to bench things that can get trapped more easily in the active. So yeah, looking at this at the number 10 slot, I think there are a lot of decks that could potentially go into the number 10. So if you think your deck should have been here instead, let me know in the comments down below. We're moving on to number 9, which is going to be Enzorarch. And we're taking a look at the top 4 list from the Sevilla special event piloted by Harvey Scheinman. So Enzorarch is in an interesting spot where you are potentially favored into the top 3 decks, which we'll get to. So you have a deck here that's favored into the top handful of decks, or at least even to favored into them, but then definitely struggling against some of the other decks in the field that either can one-shot Enzorarch or that Enzorarch can't really do enough damage to. But this deck is going to use the Enzorarch's ability Trade to draw a lot of cards throughout the game, and then use the Night Joker attack to copy Enstarmanitan's Flame Body Cannon, which does 90 active, 90 bench. Or you also have the Enz Reshiram to copy. If you've been hit, then the powerful Rage attack does a lot of damage, and the Virtuous Flame is just a vanilla 170 for when you need that. But note that you can use Enstarmanitan as its own attacker with the Reversal Energy for Flame Body Cannon, and it also has the Backdraft attack, which does 30 damage. 30 damage for each basic energy card in your opponent's discard pile. So that is specifically pretty good against Dango, especially since Enstarmanitan is fire type. So you can easily one-shot a Dango with Backdraft after they've knocked out your Enzorarch EX. Next at number 8 is Archaladon, and we're going to look at a few different lists for Archaladon here, starting with the deck list played by Isaiah Chevelle, placing 12th place at the Atlanta Regionals. So this is going to be the Poison Archaladon build with Secret Box, with the 4 Carmine. So this is a going first build, really looking at that opportunity to get the turn 1 going first KO and get that quick win. with a combination of Brute Bonnet's Toxic Powder to poison, and Pecharunt's Toxic Subjugation to make poison do even more, and then Perilous Jungle to ramp that poison all the way up to 8 damage counter. So anything 80 HP or less can be KO'd as early as the first turn of the game, going first with this deck. And then for the rest of the game, you know, you're using Archaladon's Metal Defender plus Binding Mochi to swing for 260, 270 after poison, 290 plus the Perilous Jungle. You also have Kieran in here, so you have the potential to get all the way up to 320. Then the next Archaladon list is also going to be Poison Archaladon, 15th place at Atlanta, piloted by Preston Rutledge. Preston and I actually just did a masterclass presentation on this version of the deck over on my Metafy. If you're interested in the recording of that event, it is still for sale over on my Metafy, link in the description down below. But this version of the deck now is going to be choosing to go second. You're ideally looking to use Arven turn 1 to go Precious Trolley plus your Ancient Booster Capsule. Get your whole board set up. You're not as focused on going for the turn 1 donk, that turn 1 early win with Brute Bonnet plus Pecharunt, so we're choosing to go second. However, it is still possible to get that combination off with this version of the deck. This version of the deck is going to be better past turn 1, a little bit stronger into the mid and late game, whereas the other Poison Archaladon builds I find can fizzle out and be less strong as the game progresses. And then I also wanted to look at Archaladon Enzorarch, which we're looking at the 45th place list from Sevilla, piloted by Vianney Leroy. And this is combining these two Stage 1 EX Pokemon. So Archaladon's going to be the attacker. You also have Rigid Band in here to bring that Archaladon all the way up to 330 needed for a one-shot KO, as well as Vengeful Punch as a tech for Pikachu EX and Gardevoir. And then you've got the Enzorarch EX here to give some draw support, which notably the other Archaladon decks are missing draw support, but a lot of decks in the format right now are missing draw support just from rotation happening. We'll see 2 of the Cyrano supporter in here. Search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon EX. That's going to be great when you're looking to find like 2 Enzorarchs and an Archaladon, or an Archaladon, a Enzorarch, a Fez. Cyrano finds you all 3 for just 1 card, which is really, really great. And then you've got 2 Black Belts training in here to boost your damage up. So Archaladon can do up to 260 with Black Belts training. And then you'll also see that the Genesect with Ace Nullifier is here, and that's hopefully going to help against Goldango, because this deck does not want to get one-shotted, and Goldango is going to one-shot everything. But maybe if Ace Nullifier stops eSearch Pro from being playable, then Goldango can't find enough energies to make that happen. If you enjoy cool Pokemon merch and you want to support my channel, check out the link down below for qualitypatchdesigns.com. You'll get 10% off, and they have a huge collection of custom Pokemon merch, from t-shirts to hoodies to ties, hats, posters, really anything you could think of, they have it over there. And if you're looking for more everyday wear, Into the AM has incredible passionate clothing at affordable prices. I love all of my Into the AM apparel. They've got t-shirts, tank tops, even just solid colored pants and shirts. I have a link and coupon code down below for them as well, so check them out if you're looking to pick up some new clothes and support my channel. Hopping into number 7, we're looking at Flareon Sylveon Noctowl. Now, this is a deck that I have been talking about since I started looking at this format, I guess 2 months ago at this point, maybe even more. You know, Flareon Sylveon I think has so much potential. It at first looks like a clunky deck to play, and I also think it can be a little difficult to play because there are very specific lines to take with this deck. I don't think it's a deck that you just pick up and play and then immediately find success with, because there are very specific things. Like Sylveon EX's Angelite attack is is the strongest part of this deck. Angelite, choose 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon and shuffle them into their deck. It's incredibly powerful. By the way, the list we're looking at for this is the top 32 place list from Atlanta Regionals, piloted by Luke Smith. But so yeah, Angelite's very powerful. It can't be used twice in a row. It has that clause on the attack. So you really want to make sure you're using it at the correct times. And then Flareon EX has Burning Charge, which does 130 and accelerates 2 basic energy from your deck to your Pokemon. And then Carnelian swings for 280. So Flareon's Burning Charge one-shots Dango. The Carnelian one-shots a whole bunch of things. Obviously, it doesn't one-shot Stage 2 EXs, but it one-shots pretty much everything else. And then when you're dealing with those huge Stage 2 EXs that you can't get over with your damage output, you've got Sylveon EX's Angelite to just put them away. This deck is typically playing Sparkling Crystal or Unfair Stamp. Here we see the Sparkling Crystal build being played alongside Judge and Iono to try to kind of make that Unfair Stamp effect, but also getting that reduced energy cost on your attacks, which I think is very important for this deck because Sylveon has 3 different colors in its attack cost, Flareon has 3 different colors in its attack cost, so Sparkling Crystal goes a long way here. Next at number 7 is Joltic Box, piloted to 7th place at the Monterey Regionals by Tyler Matthews. So this Joltic Box is interesting. It's kind of like the second coming of Miraidon Iron Hands from last format. You know, we don't have a lot of things that we had then. No Farseal Stone. Electric Generator is still around but not being played because there's a combination of energy types here. We no longer have Raichu V for kind of an unchecked damage output. But what we do have is this Joltic with Jolting Charge. Search your deck for up to 2 basic grass energy and 2 basic lightning energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. I think anybody who knows Pokemon cards that has looked at this card at some point said, wow, that is an insane amount of value for 1 energy on a single prize Pokemon. It looks absolutely broken. So it's actually usable now. It's finally found a home in this lightning box sort of style of deck, where you use that Jolting Charge to power up typically Iron Hands or Pikachu EX, and you're just trying to take 2 prizes every single turn. Ampu Very Much is able to do that even when you're facing down single prize Pokemon, and then Pikachu EX is doing 300 damage and also technically cannot get one-hit KO'd because of its Resolute Heart ability, although a lot of decks, a lot of players in the format will be preparing to get around that Resolute Heart because it is a frustrating ability to kind of get walled out by, so that you can't trade back into the Pokemon, or you could just gust around the Pikachu and ignore it entirely. Now, the flaw with this deck is a flaw that many decks have. It does not have a lot of draw power. You are hoping to just draw into the cards you need off of Iono or Unfair Stamp, and just have your plan on board with 2 Iron Hands or an Iron Hands and a Pika setup. But that's why the deck's playing 4 Boss, 3 Pokegear, a Prime Catcher, because basically, like, the games you're going Iron Hands, you just want to go Amp, and then Boss, Amp, or Amp, Boss, Amp, and then Topaz Bolt. So playing a max count of the Boss, 3 Pokegear, Prime Catcher gives you a lot of outs to those gusts, as well as the 4 Crispin, because sometimes you need Crispin to get your KO as well. Number 5, I've got Raging Bolt, and I'm looking at the 44th place list from Atlanta Regionals, piloted by Christian Fontenot. I think Raging Bolt is underrated, and I also think that it is potentially underrated because it used to be a beginner-friendly deck, and it's not necessarily not a beginner-friendly deck anymore, but it has more depth to it now. You've got the Noctowl Jewel Seeker, so you can actually control parts of your game, you know, particularly find, you know, the Professor Sada plus Prime Catcher, or the Jamming Tower plus Boss, or the Counter Catcher plus Crispin. You know, whatever combos of trainer cards you're looking for, you don't have to just get lucky so much anymore, as you could just search them out with Jewel Seeker. And I also think that the non-EX Raging Bolt with that Thunderburst Storm is an important player. Being able to go around the Badoos and snipe Ralts and Dreepy and stuff is pretty important, or even sniping Hoots in Noctowl mirrors, so to speak. And then you've got Slitherwing, which just takes care of Pikachu EX, so that's awesome. Burning Turbulence does 120, Pikachu EX is weak to it. Resolute Heart stops us from being KO'd, but Burning Turbulence also applies Burn, so Pikachu gets knocked out by the Burn after that. Next at number 4, I have Terabox, and we're looking at the top 4 list from the Monterrey Regionals, piloted by Yerko Valencia. And one of the innovations, or I guess 2 innovations we'll look at here in this deck list that have come about in the metagame are playing a rescue board in the deck, and that's so you can put it on Noctowl. So you can either put it on your only Noctowl preemptively so it can't get counter catcher Badooed and stuck there, or when that happens, you can use another Noctowl to then search out rescue board, because you can't search out something like a switch, and you often don't want to search out Crispin and attach an energy to Noctowl, and then that's one of your energy attachments from the Crispin. So rescue board is a cool tech for Badoo, going the counter catcher item lock. And then we've also got Jamming Tower in here. Jamming Tower can be used to play it down to discard some Pokemon from your own bench. It can be used to shut off something like a Bravery Charm or a Luxurious Cape versus Dragapult. So just a couple of the tech options here in the deck, but overall this is a toolbox deck, which means that you have a myriad of attackers, and turn to turn, matchup to matchup, you're picking what the best attack is to use. And that's kind of the hard part of the deck, is figuring out, okay, do I want to sob for a turn? Do I want to take a one-hit KO with Topaz Bolt? Do I want to swing into a bench-sitting 2-prizer with Terapagos' Unified Beatdown? There's a lot of decisions and a lot of matchup knowledge to know when playing this deck. But it is a versatile deck. It's pretty strong, and it's a lot better now that Terapagos Bouffalant has fallen off, because that was a horrible matchup for the deck. But Terapagos Bouffalant is not as strong anymore because it's not good versus the decks that are rising to the top. So that gives Terabox the opening to just come back into the format as somewhere around the top 5 deck. Then we've got Goldango. So we're going to first look at the top 4 list from Monterrey Regionals, piloted by Caleb Rogerson, the Goldango Dragapult list. So Goldango I have at number 3 overall, but I do think that the Goldango Dragapult variant makes a lot of sense. However, I also think that it is unfavored a little bit into the mirror, because into the mirror you want to be able to have like a single prize attacker for your opening and not have other 2 prizers on the board, which is very hard to do with this deck, because that specifically means that it has to be Dracloak, and this list also isn't playing Crispin. It also is only playing 1 fire, 1 psychic, so the amount of times that you're able to open with that single prize attack from Dragon Headbutt to take a single prize KO is very rare and few in between. However, this list is planning to go into the mirror match using the Genesect's Ace Nullifier, but you do only have 1 tool that you can attach to it, which is Vengeful Punch. But the Vengeful Punch is then useful into the Pikachu matchup and the Gardevoir matchup to actually put onto your Goldango. But Goldango EX is so strong because it has the coin bonus ability. You're drawing cards with your main attacker, and that main attacker has Make It Rain, which does an unlimited amount of damage. Then you've got the Dracloak line for Recon Directive for extra bench support, and you have the Dragapult EX as a possible attacker, but this version of the deck specifically is probably only attacking with Dragapult like 5% of games, maybe 8-10% of games at max, whereas I'd say the other versions with Crispin and more fire and or psychic energy are probably attacking with Dragapult like 5% more often than this version of the deck, maybe 10% more often than this version. So you're really just looking at it as, okay, there's a Dracloak line for support, and Dragapult EX is the 1 card tech you have that can kind of deal with Cornerstone. And we'll also look at the straight Goldango. We'll look at 12th place from Monterrey, piloted by Armando Cervantes. And this is using the Baby Dango. It's also using a 1/1 Caesar line. So you've got single prize attacking options that are quite realistic to use in this version of the deck. Now, what you don't see in this version is you don't see a way around Pikachu EX in the form of something like Vengeful Punch or Rocky Helmet. However, you do have single prize attackers, so you can attack into Pikachu EX with your Goldango or your Caesar, and then even if they knock it back out, they're probably not going to spend a Topaz Bolt on that. And it's also sometimes hard for them to chain Topaz Bolt, especially if you drop the Jamming Tower on them to turn off their Sparkling Crystal. So you do have playability into that matchup with Baby Goldango and Caesar, but you also have ways to just gust around the Pikachu EX. Boss, Counter Catcher, Iron Bundle. The Caesar is good into, Raging Bolt has a lot of abilities on the board. Dango Dragapult has a lot of abilities on the board. Terabox has a lot of abilities on the board. It's a very ability heavy meta right now, which is good. Abilities keep things interesting, but they also make Caesar's Punishing Scissor attack pretty strong. Going to number 2, we've got Gardevoir, and this is the first place list from Monterey, piloted by Brent Tonneson, and then the following week it was also piloted to first place at the Sevilla special event by Johan Barsechek. I should not have tried to say Johan's last name, but we will go with it. So, Gardevoir. Gardevoir EX is very strong because Gardevoir itself has the Psychic Embrace ability that can put a bunch of energy onto the board and also put damage onto your board on purpose. That goes great with Monkey Dory's Adrenabrain, as well as Screamtail's Roaring Scream attack and Drifloon's Balloon Blast attack. They all want damage on themselves or just generally on the board. Then Gardevoir EX has 310 HP, and it has the Miracle Force attack, which does 190. Paired with an Adrenabrain, you can get that up to 220, which is a very good number to hit. You're knocking out all the Ogre Pawns, you're knocking out Pheasantipity, you're knocking out Latias EX. So Gardevoir itself is a good attacker, and then it has other good attackers with it, and then it has Monkey Dory. There's just a lot going for this deck, a lot of synergy and a lot of power, and you know, talented players can do a lot with that damage manipulation and the energy manipulation, so it's not a surprise to see this deck succeeding at the highest levels of play pretty consistently. It has won every major event so far in this format: Monterey, Sevilla, Atlanta, and then the Johannesburg special event. I believe that's all of them so far. And then we've got Dragapult Dusknoir. So Dragapult is going to be the number 1 deck here, and I'm combining Dragapult Dusknoir and straight Dragapult. We're going to look at Dragapult Dusknoir first, and the list I'm going to show off here is 27th place from Atlanta Regionals, piloted by Jake Gearhart. It's not the highest placing list, but I think it's what lists might start looking more like. I don't think everything about this was perfect. I don't like only 3 Iono, but I'm not really here to criticize lists. We're here to talk about the deck and why it's strong. So Dragapult EX, it has Dracloak, an amazing stage 1 Pokemon that gives you consistency over the course of the game and reliably getting to see more cards. But then Dragapult EX's Phantom Dive is one of the strongest attacks, if not the strongest attack in the game right now. It does 200 damage and then puts 6 damage on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. And I often say, you know, if you're able to get 2 Phantom Dives off with the same Dragapult without it getting knocked out between the 2 Phantom Dives, you're probably winning most games that way, because you can spread damage in such a way that you're taking 3, 4, 5, even sometimes 6 prize cards at a time. And to help out with that prize card, those prize card combinations, you also have Dusclops and Dusknoir, each with Cursed Blast, which can KO themselves. Dusclops puts 5 damage on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Dusknoir puts 13 damage on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And of course, we can't forget that Badoo's Itchy Pollen is a fundamental part of this archetype, because you're slowing down the opponent so that you can get your Dragapults built up and then eventually get a few Phantom Dives to win the game. Now, the other variant, colloquially known as straight Dragapult, we're looking at the 2nd place list from the Sevilla special event piloted by Pedro Vicencio, and there are many different variants of this straight Dragapult. So this one is playing 8 energy, it's playing 3 Luminous and a Neo Upper as its A spec. Most of them are not playing Neo Upper, but you could look through the Sevilla special event top 8, and there's 3 pretty drastically differently built straight Dragapult decks that all did very well. So the point is that you need Dragapult, and then you need these support Pokemon that you'll typically see. Now, Latias isn't always in the deck. That's a different inclusion here. But pretty much you need Dragapult, Badoo, Blood Moon, Pheasantipity, Hawlucha, and then if it's just a straight Dragapult version, you toss Monkey Dory and some way to satisfy Dark Energy in, and you've got a recipe for success. So I actually really like what they did here. They're playing 4 Boss, 4 Research, 4 Iono, 4 Brock Scouting. Just max consistency with the supporters, and taking note that, hey, these supporters are really important because a lot of these mirror matches I'm going to get Itchy Pollen item locked in. So they're not even playing Arven, and they're playing 0 tools. And since they're playing 0 tools, they make their main stadium to be Jamming Tower. So I thought this was a really cool straight Dragapult list. I wanted to share it. before we ended this video today. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG content, and you can check out the links down below for ways to support my channel as well as my educational content. I've got a complete fundamental guide over on Metafy, as well as one-on-one coaching and a new private community where I share deck lists, meta updates, and answer questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.